Welcome to Frenzied Printing. My name is Becky. I'll be your host. Let's get into today's video.
I'm going to talk to you today about seam alignment and what different settings in your slicer do and how they behave on your model. So what I've done is basic. I've just added some primitive models here. You can add these type of things in your slicer at any time. You just right click the plate and choose add primitive. Then you pick a shape. You can even add text. So what I did was I added a cylinder, and then to that cylinder, I right click the cylinder to add a part, and I just put in a cube. So then I can match them up like this, and now they are one item because I did add part. That's what add part does. So that's how I made all of these primitive little models here that I'm going to use for demonstration purposes about seam alignment. So what I did was after I got all these models loaded in here, looking at the global section over here, if you look at some of these like system presets in here, we have the standard and high quality. I like a 0.16 layer height. I think it's great for speed as well as quality. So it's kind of my middle of the road setting that I like to use. I do have my own custom stuff up here, as you could see, for certain projects that I work on. But if we were to go with stock settings, let's look at the settings for seams under standard. It automatically puts it to aligned. We have a roll-based wipe speed. And it doesn't look like it does anything else. So there's no, the seam gap is 10%, which is standard. The scarf joint is none, and this is a beta feature. So this is your standard. So I'll print one of these. And then I think it's this one. Oh, actually, that's standard. Let's look at high quality. So if we switch it up to high quality, we have, you could see the only thing that changed was a checkbox appeared on wipe on loops. If you're not 100% sure what these things mean, just hover over them. A little box will appear. The roll-based wipe speed says the wipe speed is determined by the speed of the current extrusion roll. If you still don't know what that means, Google it. You can figure this stuff out. If a wipe interaction or if a wipe action is executed immediately following an outer wall extrusion, that means the very outside wall of your model, the part that you can see with your eyeballs, the speed of the outer wall extrusion will be utilized for the wipe action. If you don't know what a wipe action is, you can Google that too, but I'll let you know. A wipe action is a very small inward movement to try to get any like oozing off of the nozzle before the nozzle moves up to the next layer. So that's what a wipe is during seam positions. So the next thing is wipe speed. That just says how fast the nozzle will make that tiny little movement. Then wipe on loops to minimize the visibility of the seam in a closed loop extrusion. A small inward movement is executed before the extruder leaves the loop. So it's going to move inwards towards the guts of the model before it moves up to the next layer. And then we have this one that didn't get checked off under high quality. This one says to minimize visibility of potential over extrusion at the start of an external perimeter when printing with outer inner or inner outer inner wall print. The de-retraction is performed slightly on the inside from the start of the external perimeter. That way, any potential overextrusion is hidden from the outside surface. So similar to what I was saying earlier, it kind of makes a tiny little movement inwards. That's the wipe. And then this one also does a little retraction. So like kind of sucks the filament back up into the nozzle just very slightly before it moves up and back out towards the exterior wall. So sounds like all of these things are very helpful, right? When you're reading them, you're like, oh, yeah, I want that on. Oh, yeah, I want that on. Oh, yeah, I definitely want that on. So you check all the boxes thinking that you're doing the right thing, but not necessarily. Should definitely test these out before just randomly turning them on. So let's do that. This cube up here at the top right corner is the one that I'm going to give the stock settings to. The seam position is aligned. It doesn't have any scarf joint. The roll base wipe is on. The wipe on loops is on. The wipe before external loops is off. So that's our seam settings for stock. Then I'm going to play with some of the settings to see what I like best. So if I go over to the objects list, I can change different things about each object. So instead of global, you go into object, and then you can change the seam position for each thing on the plate to be completely different, and they will all print at the same time. So no need to keep running to the printer to pull off a test piece and then start another thing. So for this one in the quality setting, I changed the seam position to nearest, which is the nearest edge. That's very similar to this one, which will align to itself. So it will start a seam and then it will just keep trying to keep the seam in the same linear path here. So sometimes it can get messed up based on the topographical outline of your model, but sometimes it stays pretty straight. With nearest edge, it's guaranteed to stay straight. It's going to find the nearest exterior corner or interior corner, right? So this is an inside corner, this is an outside corner. It's going to find one of these and it's going to start creating a seam on every single layer, and it's going to put it in the same corner the whole way up. Whereas aligned kind of does the same thing. So for this one, I'm still talking about this one. The seam position I put to nearest, just so you can see if there's any difference between aligned and nearest. And I'm also going to turn on contour. So the contour, like scarf joint seam, you could see it says beta. Careful with the beta stuff. This is what you do. You test, test, test. Scarf joint, basically what it means is it's instead of creating a line and then stepping up and creating the next line, instead of that really harsh step up that we call a seam, it's going to draw the line or print the line, right, the layer line, and then at the end it's going to thin out and gradually slope up to the next layer, and then thicken back up and go around your model, and then do the same thing, thin and thicken, and up we go. So it's like wrapping a scarf around your neck, right? So that's how scarf joints work. There's a couple of options under scarf joint. There's no scarf joint. This means turn it off. Contour, which means scarfing only the rounded surfaces. So any surface that is rounded, but not surfaces that are squared. So if it has a corner, it won't scarf. But if it doesn't have a corner, it will scarf. So actually, just to kind of like demonstrate that specific thing, let's separate and make the cube a little shorter than the cylinder just for this one part. So let me just do that now. I need the objects list. I need to look at this cube and I need to make it shorter than my cylinder and then drop it to the build plate. So now you can see my cube is short and my cylinder is tall. So this top half part of the model is going to be completely round and have no sharp edge to hide a seam in. And then you'll see what scarf joint can really do. So that will really showcase what it can do. All right, so we have this one stock setting. We have this one nearest seam with scarf joints. And then this, I'm going to leave these two check boxes on that were on the stock settings. Then for this one, let's see, back into our objects list. All right, so I have the seam position set to the back side, which means it's going to print the seam on this side of the build plate no matter what. No matter what's on that side of the model, that's where the seam will be. It's going to be on the back. And then for the seam, I'm going to go ahead and turn on scarf joint, but I am going to turn on this option, scarf around entire wall. So scarfing around the entire wall means even if there is a sharp edge, it's still going to do a scarf. So we'll see the difference between those two things. Next up, I have this guy here, which is, let's see, no scarf joint. So this one is nearest edge for where the seam position will be, and no scarfing at all. So this one I have scarfing, this one I have scarfing, this one I have no scarfing, this one has no scarfing, but it's aligned. So this is aligned, this is nearest, and this one here, we're going to do random because those are our options. Nearest, aligned, back, and random. So I have an example of all of those things here. For random, I'm leaving the stock settings. So we have a check, check, and a no check. All right. So I'm going to print these out and show you what they look like. Here we are on the sliced view of these models with our different settings. And right away you could see that this one is going to suck. Yeah, all those little random seam spots. Going to be hard to hide. Going to be hard to hide. Then we have our others over here. So you can see this is the default. The seam is set to align. So it aligns with itself. So it picks a spot, starts a seam, and then it tries to line it up with itself. Really effective, especially if you have something that has an inside corner like this or an outside corner. Really good placement. This here is the one we did that was nearest edge. So you can see where the square section is. The nearest edge is hiding inside corner, which is great. But then we also did conditional scarf joints. So that's what you see here. And you can kind of see the way that they thin the line out here to scarf it to the next layer. I have a good image of what scarfing looks like. It looks like this. So it thins out, prints the layer, and then at the very end of the exterior wall, it thins again to move up to the next layer, where it will thin out again and move up again. So this seam spot right here where it's thinned in both spots, it has to move, right? Because as you thin it out, it can't be all stacked up. So you'll see it like this, where these little white dots will kind of travel around, but they will never be straight up and down like this. This one we already looked at was our random. This one is where the seam is nearest no scarfing. So it put it in here in the nearest edge, and then here in the nearest edge. And then right here, this one is where we set the seam position to back. So here it is. This is the back side of the model. It puts it right in here. So we can kind of see exactly how this is going to affect our model and where. The other thing that you could do to try to help yourself out here is paint your seam in a very specific location. So let me show you what seam painting looks like. Click on this guy. Up here, you'll see this little cube with a little zigzaggy pattern on it. This is seam painting. When you click seam painting, you can take a look at your model, grab a brush, pick a brush size. When you look at this, you can kind of see the brush size. So I'm going to erase that. It's kind of large, but it doesn't really matter as long as you can control. So if I wanted, let's say this says scarf seams. I think this one did have scarf seams. Let's see. Position. No, this one didn't have any. But if I wanted my seam to be a very specific spot, like let's say I wanted it right here on this outside corner, I can paint it there. And I can tell the system, like, this is where I want my seam. Don't put it anywhere else. I want it right here. So that's seam painting. Very useful if you have a model that you know that you have a spot you would like to hide a seam in, and not ruin another face of your model. But every time you slice your model, you can see the seam is in a bad spot. So this kind of gives you more control.
This isn't too bad except for this little bit right here. That's nearest scarf conditional. This is a no scarf, seam aligned. Not bad. This one is seam set to the back with scarf. Makes little ripples. This one is random. Looks horrible. Never use random. This one is set to nearest edge or nearest. Looks an awful lot like aligned. Almost identical.
Now that we know what our favorite seam position is going to be for this particular model, and please keep in mind that your seam position might not be best for every single model. So the seam position that works for this model might not work for the one that you're working with. So just keep that in mind, that you might have to do a little, test runs of your own. But here's what I got. Now that I know that the nearest seam position is my favorite, and that I don't like the scarfing for this particular model, I'm going to change some other things. So I'm going to take a look at, let me see, these three checkboxes right here. I'm going to take a look at these and see what these do. So if I go into objects and click each one of these, you can see I changed, oh, that's not supposed to be it. These are all supposed to be nearest. So this is nearest seam position with all three boxes checked. This is nearest seam position with checked, unchecked, checked. This is nearest seam position with check, check, nothing. And then this is nearest seam position with none of them checked, all of them unchecked. All right, let's slice it up and see what it looks like. Here's what it looks like in the slice view. Oh my gosh, where's my seams? They disappeared. Okay, let's put them back. See, this box somehow got unchecked. Oh, look, it's like magic. My seams magically appeared. All right, so that's roughly where they're going to end up. If you're ever in this view and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't check my seams, everything looks weird, or it doesn't, I can't tell, it's probably because you didn't check off the box that says seams. There's a lot of information you can see in the wipe, or not wipe. There's a lot of information you could see in this slice view. Seams is one of them. If you drag your bar all the way down to layer number 1, and if you change the view from filament, which shows you the color, you can change it to line type, and it shows you each part of your model, what type of line it is. It has a little color coding thing here, and you have to have these boxes checked off in order to see it. So as you go and scroll upward in your model, you can see layer by layer what this model is going to look like. So that's what it'll look like when it's all done. This scroll bar at the bottom shows you line by line how the lines go down. Very interesting. At least to me, but I'm a nerd. All right, let's see what these look like.
So this is using the nearest setting and then having all 3 of those check boxes checked. This is what it looks like. You can see not too great. Right there where the seams are, there's this roughness that's really prominent. I don't know if you can see it I can't really focus on it, but you can kind of see it there. It's really ugly. The square part looks great. You can see the seams right here on the edge. So that's a no for me. Then we have checked, not checked, checked. Also very ugly. Good part is you can't see the seams at all on this square part. So that got slightly better. But the rounded surface, it looks terrible. So that's a no for me. Then we have check, check, unchecked. Looks slightly better because this, I know it's hard to see on this video, but these bumped parts are actually set inwards instead of raised upward, which helped the rest of the layer lines not be so weird. But still a no for me. And then this one here is unchecking all the boxes and just using nearest. So this one, very minimal seam scarring. Very minimal. That's actually the winner. So if you have something that has, that's cylindrical and has 0 sharp corners or edges to hide a seam in, like you can hide a seam here and you can hide a seam here on an outside corner or an inside corner, and your piece looks amazing like this, right? This is, the seam is hidden on this inside corner here. It looks great. But if you don't have a sharp corner and all you have is rounded surfaces or a cylinder like this is the setting to go with. And it's nearest, and then you uncheck all these things. That's the winner.
Of course, there are a lot of other settings in here under the seams menu. I just don't have the time to go through them all right this second. When you turn on a scarf joint, this beta thing, when you turn it on, there appears to be some additional settings that I could play with. These settings here, these 4 things, I feel like this might be a whole nother video. This is like 4 or this is actually 5 other test subjects. So maybe I'll do another video all about scarf joints. Let me know in the comments if you would like that video. If I don't hear from anyone, I'm definitely not going to make one. I say definitely, but I mean maybe. So anyway, thanks for tuning in.
Luna the shop mascot says, if you're enjoying this content and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.